It's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Would you do the roll, please?
Commissioner Young?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Keen? Commissioner Brank?
Here.
Commissioner Kubal?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Steeler?
Here.
And Chair Gerard.
Here. We're asking if you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no meeting minutes tonight, but the chair is looking, we'll have both of them at the next meeting. I want to say it before we approve the agenda. Chair is looking to motion to approve the agenda with number 6 for other and then 7 to adjourn.
A
second.
I have a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next is Hidden Creek Plan Unit Development. This will have a public hearing to consider a PUD, and we're making a recommendation to City Council on this. So, Nathan, I believe you're presenting.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Give me a moment here. I'm going to bring the plan up on the screen. So this is a final planned unit development request for the Hidden Creek subdivision. I would remind you that this is within the Headwaters Master PUD. That PUD was initially approved in 2006, and I have with me just a tangible manifestation of that plan here. Some of you may have this.
Yes, I do.
So that plan is still here at the city. It's still effective because the first phase was initiated right after it was initially approved. So this final PUD request is to formalize the deviations for the area that will be occupied by Hidden Creek. As you'll recall, the concept plan for this development was reviewed several times in 2021. And then the preliminary plat application was subsequently made with the feedback received. That preliminary plat did get approved by the City Council in February of 2022 after a recommendation to approve it was received from the Planning Commission. This development is approximately 70 or so acres. The first phase of it, I'll switch the screen here to the phasing. The first phase will contain approximately 43 acres with 65 lots to be constructed in this first phase of the development. The first phase is what will eventually be final platted. The development has 125 homes in it total. So to summarize again, this was presented to you when the preliminary plat was approved. The land use is consistent with the zoning district, the comprehensive plan, and the Headwaters Master PUD. Additionally, we looked at the density, which is in this case about 2.9 units per acre. That density is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and the Headwaters Master PUD. In PUDs, the densities have to balance out overall. So now I'm going to jump to the deviations. This is really the main show here. And so these are the deviations. I have a table in the staff report that summarize the deviations that were approved in the Headwaters Master PUD. The base zoning district, the MXR1 standards on the left with the approved deviations in the middle. And then to the right, you can see what the developer is proposing here. The developer is proposing the same deviations as were approved initially in 2006. There is one minor distinction that I would like to note, and that is the side yard setback. In the original Master PUD, the side yard setbacks were distinguished between the side yard to the house and the side yard to the garage. In this case, the developer is proposing a standard 7.5-foot setback, which would simply average the 10 and the 5. So we'd still have the 15 feet between structures. However, we're standardizing that side yard setback. This is seen as by staff as beneficial. Because it helps to potentially eliminate permitting errors. When we're reviewing, we don't have to really distinguish between the side yard and the house and the garage. In addition, there could be cases where it would create a circumstance where a variance may be requested because we have, if you started building on both sides of a block and you went towards the center, you may end up with a situation where someone's requesting less setback between structures. So that's kind of the staff review of those deviations. All right, so I'm just kind of paging through, and I will bring it back to the map here so you can kind of have this as your visual. So the Parkland dedication for this, I wanted to make another note here. What you can see in this plan is a little different than what was initially presented to the city. The outlot C here and the park were initially separated by a boundary that ran north-south, and now the boundary between these two areas is east-west. I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of get a better look at this. The trail that was initially shown is still there. That will connect this development and the pedestrian walkways east-west. Additionally, the outlot C will contain a stormwater basin, the maintenance bench, the area that's used by Public Works to kind of go around the stormwater pond and maintain it, is wide enough to allow for a city standard trail. So in other words, a trail can be constructed to connect this park area that's proposed here to this east-west trail that connects both sides of the development. So the connectivity is maintained through this area. Second point on the Parkland piece is the park is actually larger in this configuration than it was when it was initially proposed. So this has gone from about 2.78 acres to 3.18 acres. So it is larger. It is still under the total required by ordinance for the first phase. The remainder will be paid by a cash in lieu fee. Okay. All right, we've talked about the staging of the development. The first phase would happen after the final plat and final PUD are approved by the City Council. That is anticipated here in summer of 2022. The subsequent second phase, what's called phase 1B on the screen here, it's phase 2. That would be constructed in years to follow, probably somewhere around 23 or 24, depending on market conditions. A public hearing was noticed. Staff have not received any calls or emails on this particular request. Next steps for this project are for the final PUD and plat and subsequently a development agreement to all be approved by the City Council. The Planning Commission this evening will be making a recommendation to the City Council. The final PUD review criteria were provided in the staff report. Staff did find that this appears to be consistent with those criteria for consideration. Engineering has been in close contact with the applicant's engineer, and we have received final grading plans that have been signed, utility plans, and all of those things which satisfy the city engineer's comments. This development did receive a conditional approval in May of 22 from the Rice Creek Watershed District for this first phase. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for the Planning Commission to recommend approval of this final PUD request to the City Council with conditions 1 through 5 that have been detailed to you in your staff report. So with that, I'll take any questions. I would note that our applicant is not here this evening. We will try to answer any questions that you have.
Is that John? Because I have him online.
Oh, it sounds like he is online with us, so it may be possible for him to answer questions through.
Questions of staff? Susan?
What is the plan for Outlot E? Will that be turned over to the city for future city maintenance, or will that be retained by the owner/developer?
Outlot C, you're saying?
Outlot E,
E,
that big freaking wetland.
this one.
Yeah.
Yes. That outlot will be retained by the developer. The purpose for retaining that is for a future stormwater pond, which would be constructed on that outlot, which would serve development that is surrounding. So, yeah, it's more of like a regional style pond.
Other questions? Nathan, I have a couple, three. The landscaping, I was a little confused on what they're required, if anything. It sounds like the PUD requires something, but we don't. So what's actually happening there? Are we gonna get 4 trees per lot, or?
Yes, so that is a good question. The city code does require at a minimum for single-family homes, 4 trees per lot, in addition to having turf established. You have to have grass growing on the property and no unturfed or seeded areas. So that would be the requirement. The city does not have landscaping requirements per se for developers. And so those minimum landscaping requirements need to be satisfied when the lots are built on. So when the applicant comes in for a building permit, they give the city an escrow for the minimum landscaping requirements. That escrow is not released by the city until they have satisfied the landscaping requirements.
And then can we go back to the trails for a minute? So you have this east-west trail, short trail going between the 2 streets there. Are there sidewalks in this development, or what else?
Yes, there's at least 1 sidewalk along every street.
They're just not on this plan.
Yeah, they're not shown on this plan.
And that's fine, that's fine. And then they're somehow gonna connect that trail down to the High Parkland area? That east-west trail to the High Parkland?
Yeah, so are you referring to the park area here
Yes.
or Parkland to the north?
Parkland to the south, where your cursor is.
Yes, where the cursor is. Yes, so the park will be accessed, can be accessed through a trail that would go through this outlot C, south to the park, in addition to having actual, it's not in the red line here, but this park will actually also have access from what's shown on this map as Ely Avenue, although I believe that is Elizabeth Avenue. So if you see where the cursor is right now, that's
Yes.
actually park area too. So you can access the park from there, in addition to Headwaters Parkway to the east.
And my last question is on block 4, lot 12. It looks like it's a little narrow, but there's a little curve there, so I don't know if the math works out. It just wasn't labeled that it was 65. It's it's a nitpicky thing. If you can just verify that.
You're referring to block 4, lot 12?
Block 4, lot 12,
This
right
one.
there. So you're 48 at the front, it looks like, and then we got 15, and so we're close. We just could verify that that one's 65.
Yeah, so we can verify that. The front yard setback, or sorry, the width of the lot is measured from that line where the front yard setback is.
Correct.
It's my understanding that this lot meets the minimums, although I think this measurement may be from this southern lot line to this line here. We have a 37-foot measurement on this side as well. So we will verify that before this gets to the city council to ensure that this lot meets.
Because all the other ones on the curve have that second line. It's got both lots up at the street, and then it's got one behind it which is at the lot line. And this one, because of the angle, probably needs it too. I'm fairly confident that it works, but
No, that is a fair question and something that we can for sure address.
other questions of staff? If the applicant's online, is there anything they would like to add?
John, if you can unmute yourself, you would be able to talk. Give me 1 second here, though, because I got to set up.
Give me
Give
an
me 1
address.
second. Out this time. Go ahead and talk and see if we can hear you. John, go ahead and unmute yourself. John? I'm not sure if we got him there. John, if you can hear me, if you can unmute yourself, you will be able to speak at the meeting if you want to.
Sorry about that. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I can't be there in person. I don't really have anything to add. I just wanted to make the attempt to get here and I had a conflict, so I had to come in digitally, and I appreciate your time. The one thing I will say is that staff has been awesome working through a very complex project. Nathan got dropped into this and Jeremy Hauser and Ryan Goodman's group is the engineering side has been phenomenal. So just want to tell them on the record what a great job they've done. But yeah, I'll answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I'm good.
Thank you for attending tonight. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name's John Dobbs, 2453 Skyline Drive, and I represent Paul Bergerman as the developer and the project manager.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the developer? We have no questions for you at this time. I assume you'll stay online for a little bit?
I will. I'm going to mute.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. The way this will work tonight, we'll formally open a public hearing. We'll ask if anyone wants to speak to this application. You need to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Spend a couple minutes telling us your thoughts on this application. After we have heard everyone who wishes to speak, we will close the public hearing and it'll come back for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation. So it's pretty straightforward. So we will open the public hearing at 7:17 p.m. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Would you please come up and state your name and address for the record?
Erica Burns, 19996 Enfield Avenue North. And you addressed all the questions. The only one I had was the plan to extend Headwaters Parkway. I currently am on Enfield, so our road would go through to the new development. We're wondering when Headwaters Parkway would be developed.
Chair, would you like me to answer the question? Sure.
Would be best.
Yes, Headwaters Parkway is located, if you're looking at the cursor in the map on the screen, it's on the southeast part of this proposed development. Headwaters Parkway would be extended along this curve here on the south part of the development. Access for construction and other traffic would be available through Headwaters Parkway. Yep, and then I can also, just for everyone's kind of benefit here, on the screen you see the master PUD that was initially approved for this area. It does show the alignment that is anticipated for Headwaters Parkway. There are other plans that have this, but this kind of generally shows the orientation or expected alignment.
Does anyone else wish to address this application? Karen, do we have anyone online?
I have no one.
Any emails need to be read?
None.
I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Hearing no one from Karen and seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing at 7:19 p.m. Commissioners, what would you like to do?
I think it looks pretty much what we've seen in the past and not too many changes. So I'll make a motion to recommend that we approve the Hidden Creek Final PUD to the City Council with the 5 conditions identified by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries
Thank you.
unanimous. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
We'll stay in touch.
We have moved to item number 6, which is other. And we'll start. Do we have Councilperson Munson online?
I do not.
Okay, then we'll start at the far end there. Abby?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let some of the commissioners know, I don't remember if I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I've been here now for about a month and been able to sift through processes, procedures, codes, you name it. I've really been trying to get my hands in everything I can to understand all that needs kind of maybe some review, updating. There isn't a lot that doesn't need review and updating. So we're starting to look at some of our administrative permitting procedures to see how we might be able to streamline those, make them more efficient for our residents. Also have recently found out that the city did budget for a planner position for the 2022 years. So we are revisiting an older job description, so a pre-2014 job description. My hope is that within the next couple of months, we'll have that for sure released, but gone through the process of adding it into our union contracts, slating it for advertisements so that hopefully by mid to end of summer at the latest, that we might have a full-time planner back in the office. The city has requested that all department heads submit 10-year financial, capital, and personnel plans, proposals, to look at aligning a financial plan, a 10-year financial plan for the city. I have looked at the Community Development Department and requested consideration of a number of positions over that 10-year timeframe to get us partially back to where we were pre-2014. So for some of the commissioners that may not know, before 2014, the city had a development director, a planner, and a community development admin. In addition to those positions, I'd also be recommending a zoning tech, so somebody that is just here all the time in the office to not only answer some of those front desk, front line questions, but to do building permit review and can stay on top of code enforcement. Also looking at how we can combine some code enforcement efforts between the building inspections division and the planning zoning division so that some of our code enforcement efforts are a little more streamlined. I'm not gonna lie that right now our code enforcement time frame is very poor. Nathan and Franny have been doing the best they can, both of them at part-time contract staff, are costing us quite a bit. But this is the time of year where we have a lot of zoning queries, a lot of violations, and we're just not, we just don't have the resources to get to everything right now. So the hope is in the next couple months, we start kind of turning that around, and maybe in 2023, being able to add a little bit more staff to this department to be able to better serve the planning and zoning needs of the community. I also want to let you know that the city held a public open house on the final draft, or the final draft of the downtown plan. That was last Thursday night here at City Hall Community Room. We thought that we'd maybe get a dozen people. There's about 60 people that turned out for the meeting. It was a beautiful night. We were really surprised. A lot of really great public feedback came from that. The community is very excited about the downtown plan. That downtown plan will be before you, I believe it's your first meeting in July for consideration of a recommendation to the city council. So if you have not already engaged at all in the downtown planning process, we do have materials online. There is a public input form right available. Feel free to reach out to me via email, or else give me a call if you want access to that or want to know more about where that is. And then lastly, I have not put at all aside the discussions that we were having about the MXR1 and our low and medium family residential neighborhood discussions. With all that we kind of have right now going on immediately, we are just putting a pause on that discussion at the moment, reevaluating how we address that conversation. All of this is also in light of, and you'll see next month, we're gonna start having some pretty heavy meetings, I would say. Next month, you're gonna see some pretty significant site plans for some really good commercial construction coming in. We're also in the process of reviewing a new industrial development that's gonna add about 200,000 square feet of industrial campus to the city. So there's quite a number of commercial, industrial, you've seen some residential coming up right now that's kind of just dominating our daily workload. So high level, we've got a lot going on. I'm still looking at things, policies, procedures, but know that we're trying to kind of pull ourselves out of the no paid city staff role we've been in and kind of get this department a little bit more functioning to where we need to be.
Any questions for Abby? Susan?
Yes,
But you are still accepting code enforcement?
we are. Yep. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is a delay in us getting to them. It's a delay in us inspecting them. Right now, we are paying our consulting team to do those services. It is costing a pretty significant cost to be able to be doing code enforcement. But
I'm thinking one in particular that I have been lax in providing to you, that may be something that needs a little bit of overlap with either Washington County or Rice Creek.
yeah, I mean, that is the thing. If for those that aren't familiar with code enforcement, we are a statutory city. Code enforcement is a lot of reaching out to property owners, sending notices. It's not like we can kind of say, hey, will you do this? And if you don't do it by this time, we'll come in and do it. It's a lot of hand-holding, a lot of please do this, to a point that we can cite property owners, and then they end up in court. Courts don't want to deal with zoning violations. A lot of these are extremely time-intensive and not only take maybe Franny, who's been at the forefront of planning and zoning, but may also involve our building inspections division, maybe PD if there's a criminal issue. Sometimes they involve public health. So they're very resource-heavy actions. But yes, you're right. There are a number of them out there that we have that will involve our watershed districts and engineering staff as well.
Before we get to you, Nathan, let me just tell you, you're worth every nickel. You might
He
be
is.
expensive, but you're worth every nickel.
He is, and they know if I ever mention how much they cost, I'm not griping. I'd happily pay the money I didn't budget. So I'm new here.
So Nathan, what do you have for us?
No, I am not offended by that, and I definitely appreciate that. I can appreciate the hard work that Abby is putting in as your community development director to review planning processes. It's long overdue, and I think hats off to the work so far. So that's really all I have. You know, Abby kind of forecasted some of the stuff we're working on, so you'll be seeing some site plan reviews and some more loaded agendas moving forward.
Karen?
I have nothing nearly as exciting as that, so we'll just move on.
Geneva?
I love the maps.
I love the maps. All right. Justin?
Nothing for me.
Kevin?
I have nothing, thank you.
Dan? Susan?
Nothing, sir.
I have one. As long as you're doing code enforcement, I waited to the end here. Donovan used to send a letter every now and then to all of the people who have the electronic signs in town. You know, our signs will be the death of the planning commission. We all know that. But I believe we have a 20-second rule before they can change. And we were adamant about putting that in. And if you just drive down 61, go north a little bit, you'll run into a half a dozen signs. And if any of them are at 20 seconds, I would be stunned. And we're getting a lot more of them, and it's just probably time to send out the annual letter reminding them. And I'm saying go out there and visit them by no means, but I think he used to send something out to them. That's all I have.
Remind me, what is the 22nd?
So when you have one of those electronic billboard signs, you know, like at
Like City Hall here.
like City Hall, it can change every 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Any faster than that is not allowed. And this stemmed, when we ended up with this, there had been a number of court cases that if you don't have something, you can't enforce anything later. So we were at the forefront of getting, and 20 seconds seemed reasonable, that it wasn't changing every 5 or 10 seconds.
Okay, wasn't aware of that, thank you.
Becomes a safety issue on the road.
And again, signs will kill us, it's just no doubt. I have nothing else, hearing nothing. Do we have a meeting on the 20?
Yes, we do.
22nd?
June 22nd.
All right. With that, the chair is looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you